Hello, Freda Wallace, and welcome to Gender Nebulous, episode 23.
23, bloody hell.
23, I know. It's like, where's all that time gone? That's like, if we do 2 hours, if 2 hours per show, what's that, like 46 hours we've been doing this?
Yeah, all together.
Yeah. So last week's Thursday Live, we were talking about agency and autonomy, and do trans people have those things? And I thought today that we'd follow that up with representation. So the question is, do transgender people have representation in things like politics, sport, business, all kind of, or other walks of life? You know, so I don't know. What do you think about that, Freda? Do we?
Well, let's start. I mean, obviously not enough.
No, I know.
Because like when we do see people representing us, we do over-celebrate. Like I said before, we over-celebrate it to some extent. Like when we discover, oh, there's a famous trans person, or there's a famous, we cling on to them, and we kind of only see the trans part sometimes because we're so not used to seeing a positive role model. But when there is the slightest glimmer of that possibility,
you say we get a bit overexcited when we see another trans person on the telly.
Yeah. When you see, I mean, it's great because like when you mentioned a few things there in the intro, like about different kinds of representation, but I think I'm talking more in the media. So, I mean, how many famous trans women are
people? I am cheating here. I've got it open on Google.
Well, I was going to say, famous trans act. Like,
I mean, let's just list some like famous UK trans people that most people will know. So, I mean, Annie Wallace. I think most people would know her.
If you're from only in the UK, probably.
Yeah. So, I mean, she's on telly quite often.
She's in a soap opera called Hollyoaks.
Hollyoaks. Where's your H, love?
Hollyo. I'm dropping the H's.
Dropping your H's.
Sorry. I'm sorry, darling. I'll start to talk properly, shall I?
Pronounce your H's.
I'm sorry. We're getting elocution lessons.
Electrocution lessons for you.
We can't all be posh like you, Victoria.
That's true. And then, who else is there? Eddie Izzard, famous comedian. Everybody knows Eddie Izzard.
I have some issues with Eddie Izzard because...
Well, let's not get into the issues, but Fox Fisher, you know Fox?
Not really, no.
Fox Fisher does a lot of photography, movie maker, quite well known. I think Fox lives in Brighton.
Yeah, I know the person.
So
you mean
Fox
now.
And their partner, they do a lot of like movie making stuff and all kinds of stuff online. If you have a look, your friend Kelly Maloney,
my friend.
Well, you were on the same show as her for a debate, let's say, the other week.
Yeah. I mean, Kelly's nice. She's been on a few
boxing
talk
promoter.
shows.
Yeah.
But what?
I mean, she's famous because she was a boxing promoter and was the manager for Lennox Lewis, I think it was.
The story is really interesting.
Interesting story, yeah. Juno Dawson, Monroe Bergdorf, Jake Graff, April Ashley. I mean, those are just like a few of the names that you would kind of come up with. And if you go international, you got Laverine Cox, Elliot Page, India Moore, Dominique Jackson, Trace Lissette. Most of those people were in that Disclosure documentary. Did you watch that?
Yeah,
because that was all about this topic, really, about representation of trans people.
It was mainly about representation in Hollywood and film, TV. But I'm interested in trans people that are doing things in, like I'm more likely to be interested in somebody that's done something in science or technology, and anything like that. Because like one of my favorite trans people of all time, which I mention and I talk about quite a lot, is Sophie Wilson. Mm-hmm. The reason I'm interested in Sophie because like when I was young, the first ever computer that I used was an Acorn BBC Micro.
Well, you're showing your age now, Freda.
And but this was it. That when I was at school, and they wheeled this thing out on a massive platform there was one computer for the whole school, and I later learned that the chip, the main architecture, the main motherboard chip, whatever you want to call it, the ARM chip was developed by Sophie Wilson, and that chip the ARM chip, ARM technology, architecture is in nearly every mobile phone and every computer still to this day. And I think that's an amazing achievement. So like sometimes when I'm arguing with transphobes, I say, well, the only reason you're able to argue with me on your little device there is because the trans woman invented
the chip.
No, it's a very simplistic way of. It is an irony in it, but it's a simplistic point,
it's
really,
very simplistic.
because she didn't develop it on her own, obviously, but it's still an interesting story. But that means a lot to me, because I was very interested in computers when I was a kid, and I started doing a little bit of coding and stuff like that, and I didn't know this whole time when I was using these computers that I don't know why I was attracted to computing and doing that, but if I'd have known then that there was a trans woman, it would have inspired me more, you know what I mean?
Representation, it does kind of, you want to see it, don't you?
Yeah, and
that's
the point.
Represented in things.
That's the point with representation. Another one of my favourite trans people of all time was
Victoria Hodges.
Oh, obviously, Victoria Hodges. But Wendy Carlos was one of the first people to develop with Robert Moog the synthesizer.
All right.
And she did the soundtrack to Clockwork Orange, and she did loads of really complicated
I'm learning
things.
Here. Carry on.
And she was a electronic music pioneer, because she helped Robert Moog, or Moog. Some people say Moog. But it's spelled M-O-O-G. But she developed that with him, and I think a lot of modern music today, without that development of the synthesizer, wouldn't sound the way it does. You know what I mean? So there's two trans women there, because I'm into music and I make music, so I'm connected directly to two very important trans people for that technology.
Yeah.
Now it's great when I see, famous trans women in films and stuff, but I'm not really. I think the thing is, like I was saying this to you before, it's like there are probably trans people out in the world that are trans, but they just don't need anybody to know they're trans. You know what I mean? It's not part of their life.
Yeah, I mean, not everybody's openly trans who are trans. So maybe there are people out there who are trans we just don't know. Oh yeah,
I think that's possible. I just want to say hello to
I was going to say you're on chat.
Yeah, because we've got the lovely Roger, and we've got Rebecca, and I'm not sure on Mihols. I'm not sure who that is, but she's saying hello, Vicky. So it's probably
she's saying hi, Freda, and hello, Vicky, and Wendy Carlos is one of my all-time faves. So yeah.
Yeah, so I was thinking about other. I mean, if anybody can think of any other really famous trans women that have made some kind of massive impact, because those are two that I think for me
drop some
personally.
Names in the chat, and
because there's probably loads we're missing out. I mean, what about India Willoughby?
India Willoughby, yeah.
I love India Willoughby gets herself into quite a lot of trouble on Twitter, and I can't. Did you see what happened this week? Because she said to J.K. Rowling, "I'm more of a woman than you will ever be."
I did see that.
And a lot of people came for India with that.
India's been on. Was she one of the original Loose Women hosts, India Willoughby?
She was a newsreader on ITV.
Yeah, and then she was on Loose Women, and then she was also in Big Brother, wasn't she?
Yeah.
So I mean, she's a lot of TV kind of representation there.
I was just going to say though about what happened with India. She got piled on a bit, and because it's not a very feminist thing to start comparing how much of a woman you are with other women. But I think what India does is she's a provocateur, and that's part of, because I can relate to that a little bit. So I don't like tone policing people like that. I think it's probably not the best, most wise thing to say, but it did have a reaction, and the reason it did have its reaction is because of she's very.
I'm not sure what
irreverent.
The reaction was, but.
Well, it provoked a reaction from J.K. Rowling, didn't it? And J.K. Rowling went straight into that trap. So well done, India, for that. And who else have we got on your list? I know you've got a little list there, haven't you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we've gone through the list of names. I didn't really want to focus on like people in movies and TV world. I was kind of interested in like everyday life, like politicians. I think there's one trans politician, and they weren't out as trans when they were voted to be a politician, when they became a politician.
Is this a British person?
It was Jamie, can't remember Jamie's last name, but it's Conservative MP.
Oh, gosh, yeah, I remember Jamie Wallace.
Was it Wallace?
Jamie
Yeah,
Wallace.
same.
Yeah.
Jamie,
no, it was spelled differently.
Spelled IS, isn't it? Wallace.
I was very cynical about Jamie Wallace because...
So Jamie came out as trans. I think it was based on some kind of blackmail thing that was going on.
He was going to be forced out the closet.
So they came out to kind of circumvent that.
But
then they've kind of not transitioned. They've still kept their pronouns as he, him. They still present male, and I think the statement was that they were going to stay. Yeah. They were going to keep doing that until they were no longer an MP, which I guess that's fine. But they weren't voted into Parliament as a trans person, so.
No,
we've never had that. We've never had that situation where an openly trans person has become an MP. Eddie Izzard tried to become an MP for, I think it was Sheffield Central or South. I can't remember which one it was, but wasn't selected.
Yeah.
So we don't really have any political representation. We've got. I mean, there's allies. Really. Obviously, there's allies. Some really good allies, but there's no trans person who's actually. Got to that stage yet. And if you look at the size of the transgender population in the UK, I mean, based on the most recent results of the census, 21, there's 262,000 people, if that's the figure we're going to use, who identify either as trans women, trans men, non-binary, or undisclosed. So what's that? That's 0.5%. So out of 650 people, MPs, you'd expect to see about 5 of them would be trans if you were to kind of calculate it that way. Now that doesn't mean that those that it's easy to become an MP and we should automatically have 5 trans people. I'm not saying that, but I guess you have to come up through the political ranks to get there. But
if it's about representation, then if you like say if you are a trans politician. You're not necessarily just representing trans people, are you? So if the trans bit shouldn't be the important bit.
Trans bit isn't the reason why you're the politician. No. What I'm saying is that statistically there should be more than one. Yeah.
But this is the problem I was saying before about
maybe we don't know.
When we do see trans people coming into prominence, we do kind of make the mistake sometimes of going, they're trans, they must be on our side, they must be an ally, but they're not necessarily. And I mean, like Caitlyn Jenner, I don't consider Caitlyn Jenner to be an ally. I just have no idea what's going on with Caitlyn Jenner. But just because some days, obviously because trans isn't an identity, it's a delineation. Like being cis is not an identity. Your identity is based on, your achievements, whatever you do in your life. It's not just I mean, I know you've got to have something on your passport and your birth certificate, but that doesn't necessarily denote anything about who you are.
So on my holes, as commented, Rose Schmitz is one of my more recent faves. So pottery and art is incredible. She's on the
trans artist.
What's the pottery show called? Throwdown Pottery something. I can't remember what it's called, but yeah, Rose is the kiln girl, and she's good. She's quite prominent on Twitter.
I need to check.
It's a good show. You could watch that.
I'll tell you who is trans men are very underrepresented, aren't they?
Yeah.
I know there's a few in sports. There's a few trans men rugby players, but I don't know if you call them. Famous
how
people.
How many sports people can you name who are trans? I can't think of hardly any. Apart from our friend Kirsty Miller, who we had on last weekend.
Yeah, where is Kirsty? I thought she was going to be popping in the chat. But if you haven't seen our interview with Kirsty Miller about trans sports, it's really good because she's just very, very full of full of information,
facts and figures. Yeah.
A torrent of information. I couldn't take it all in. I was like, I had to shut up for quite a lot of it, which is not
pretty unusual for Freda to shut up. You've probably noticed.
Yeah. So, I still think. We've got Emily Bridges, the cyclist.
Bridges, yeah. I'm not sure they're currently actually doing any sport, but
I think they've frightened her away from it. The sporting body's not really supporting her, are they?
Yeah. So there's not many, is there? I mean, we've not. There's a few non-binary people in women's football in the Lionesses team. There was a few in there.
Is there?
Yeah, there was. I think there's a couple of non-binary people in there.
That's really interesting, actually, because I didn't know that. Because I was having a conversation with somebody recently where I was saying, could you imagine, like, because the Lionesses, like football in this country is like the main sport, isn't it? So imagine if there was a trans woman footballer who got through to that. Would cause such a, could you imagine the uproar?
Yeah.
And would FIFA support them? Would FIFA say, nah,
well, I don't know. I'm not sure what the rules that the kind of, I don't know what is it in the UK that governs football? Which organisation?
It'd be interesting. It would be interesting to see that.
I'm not sure what the FA's rules are on trans inclusion. I've never heard them say anything on that. I mean, FIFA has a view, I'm sure, but UK FA, I don't know.
But there's not even, as far as I'm aware, an out male gay footballer.
No.
And that's statistically impossible.
There's maybe one or two now. I'm not sure, but I don't think there are any in the Premier League.
No, in rugby, yeah, in rugby,
yeah. I'm not sure Premier League. Maybe some of the lower leagues there are.
We've gone off on a tangent now.
We have. We're talking about inclusion, aren't we?
We're talking about trans people. Talking about us. So okay, like if I was to become famous.
It's never going to happen. Infamous maybe, famous no.
No, but I'd be really worried about everything I say because, and even now I am. Like when
I'm already worried about what you say.
But when I've been on the radio recently, and I'm really
that's what I'm worried about.
I was on LBC one, and I didn't do very well on that. I was too angry.
You came across a little what's the word?
I was really upset.
You were emotional. I could tell you were stressed by the way you were talking. It didn't sound like the normal relaxed Freda. But I mean, you made some great points. It's a highly stressful situation going on into those kind of shows just off the cuff like that. And the person you're up against was not the easiest of. Although you didn't talk to each other directly, but just the thought of being up against somebody like that is not easy.
Yeah, so anyway, what I was saying is I'm very conscious about what I'm saying because I feel like I'm representing a trans voice. Now, I'm not really, because we all have different. We might share a similar experience, but we definitely do not have the same.
Yeah, but on that show at that time when you were talking, I mean, you are the trans voice on that show, aren't you? And it's going out to a huge audience.
So I think with that, like, say if you were a famous trans person and you're speaking as on a platform like that, it must be quite difficult sometimes because that everything you say could be taken out of context, and then the trans community might think you're saying the wrong thing, which is fine. You should always be able to be called out. My attitude is, if I say something you don't agree with, that's great. Tell me about it, because then I can learn from it. But I think some people get very defensive, don't they? Go, oh, don't tell me what to say, blah blah blah. No, sometimes you need to be told. I do. That's why
Let me just make a note. Yeah.
Well, this is like, see, if I was to do this like on a bigger platform, I think you'd have to reel me in.
Reel you in, yeah. I think you need a minder or a what do they call it? Like a handler. That's what you need. A muzzle. There you
go. Rebecca's just reminded me of somebody, James Berry. This goes back. Quite a long time. This is like the 18th century, but he lived his entire life as a male, but born, assigned female at birth. I think that's right. And he was a British military surgeon, and the story is really fascinating actually because at that time there wasn't any sort of legislation in place like we have now, so people just lived as they found, they were accepted maybe if they I mean, there are quite a few cases in historical record of people you would call now non-binary. I don't think they had that kind of framework for it then. But have you heard the story of Gentleman Jack?
No.
It was a TV show. It was dramatized last year, and it was. I suppose they would call.
Is that? Oh, who? What was the name of the actress in that? I can't remember.
They would call her a butch lesbian nowadays.
Yeah, I know you mean.
But she lived as a male, and people called her Gentleman Jack, and no problem with it. She just got on with her life, and there was no, they didn't. Well, obviously she had troubles in her life, but the point I'm making is that the people on the trans non-binary spectrum have probably always existed. I was looking at.
So Rebecca's just added an extra comment there about James Barry. Didn't know he was trans until exam at death. So yeah.
Wow. Yeah. But there was I was looking at. I was watching a documentary about Greek statues recently, and Greeks used to do a lot of. They were very interested in the idea of androgyny, and you'll see statues with a sort of female torso and a male bottom half.
Yeah.
And that was. That was quite common and celebrated, and it was celebrated. It wasn't stigmatized. Obviously, it wasn't something that they could achieve with the human body, but they sort of lived it through the sculpture. And a lot of sculptural art that represents the body, you'll see these figures with like quite ample breasts, but then also quite big phalluses. So they're playing with the idea of gender. The idea of gender nonconformity goes back to the ancient Greeks. It's not like suddenly, because there's a certain discourse, isn't there, in the conservative right that say, what's all this new non-binary nonsense we have to deal with now? It's like, it's TikTok that's making our kids think about gender. No, it's not. It goes back to like thousands of years.
I'm just wondering if there's ever going to be a statue in Farnworth
of me.
Miss Freda Wallace. What do you think?
Will be.
It's like, yeah,
something for the pigeons to shit on.
Yeah, there you go. Something for the future to think about. All right, so politics. We've done politics. We've done sport. What about business?
See, that's not one of my areas. Business.
I think business is one of those areas where, a lot of businesses do have these inclusion I can't even speak, inclusion policies, and especially around transitioning at work, trans inclusion, not so much non-binary inclusion yet, but that is being introduced into these same policies. I know my company's big on this. We've sponsored a few things, and we'll be doing some more. But one of the big trans organisations that kind of, I would say, is the leading organisation for businesses and trans inclusion would be Trans in the City, run by Bobby Pickard and crew. And they, their pledge they have, which is, to support trans people in the workplace, has probably, I think it's up to 300 major organisations that have signed up to that pledge. So you can almost say that within like large corporations and businesses, that we do have really good representation these days, because all these companies have these kind of employee resource groups where, they're for LGBTQ people within the company. And some of them have, additional trans groups and non-binary groups, etc. And all these groups are kind of, they're there to help people who are trying to navigate policies and stuff.
Yeah.
And, to make really sure there's things in place to ensure that person is fully included within that business. So
I forgot to tell you about this. Actually, I was a few months back. I remembered this because we were talking about it earlier before we went live. But I just remembered we have like an inclusion and diversity officer. And a lot of the times people are very negative about it. They feel like they're being lectured to inclusion and diversity. What's this now? And a lot of people, especially the older people I work with, are a bit set in their ways. Anyway, so we had this training session, and it's not like that. It's not like somebody stood at the front of a classroom telling people. It's just a conversation among staff. You might have, the show video.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, she got onto the subject of gender, and then she was looking. She realised I was there, and she goes, "Why am I giving this talk when you're?" She said, "Oh," I said, "I don't really want to talk about my, but she said, I'm talking about you, so you should be leading this bit of the." And she asked me, I said, "What is the common thing people?" And it was really nice that nobody had ever asked me to
include you in the conversation about people like you.
This was the first time anybody had ever said to me, "Freda, how does it feel when if people misgender you?" And
I mean, that's a really good point you bring up, because if you look in the media at the moment, all these conversations going on about trans people, there's no trans people in those conversations. You've got Tories fighting with Labour. In Parliament, none of those people are trans or non-binary, and yet they're talking about our issues.
Yeah. Well,
so where's our voice in there?
Where's our trans politician?
Exactly,
I don't know. Would it matter? But this is why women are the best speakers for us, because they understand misogyny.
But we have to rely so heavily on allies and friends.
Yeah, but
to
they tend
speak
to be
up
women.
For us. They do, absolutely do. But, I worry about where's our voice? Where is our representation with our own voices? Are we heard enough in these conversations? It's like people are always talking on our behalf, or people are talking who don't know what we think. They've not asked us. We're not invited to the conversation. It's always it always feels like cis people are talking about us, not to us.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I was saying, it's important to say that it is mainly in politics, it's women that are speaking to that, because they understand that the issues that affect trans people tend to affect they've had the same struggle as women, because it's about feminism, and because it might feel sometimes, if you're on Twitter and you see the turf, the female turfs, and you might think, oh, women don't support us, but overall, without question, it is women in politics that stand up for trans people. It is men as well, obviously, because there are gay men, and there are like John Nicholson is a really good politician.
Yeah, he's really good. He's often on Twitter posting.
And I've spoken to him myself, because John Nicholson used to do a show on Talk Radio.
Did he? I didn't know that.
At the end, it was on a Sunday, and I rung him a couple of times, because he was talking about this was about 3 years ago now, but he was talking about trans inclusion and things like that.
See, people like him and like Nicola Sturgeon, they're really clued up. I mean, they must have had conversations with trans people, because they're really keen on the issues that we would talk about ourselves. But other politicians, they've probably never spoken to a trans person. They don't really know what they're talking about most of the time.
If I can just say somebody in the chat on me holes. And I know he said on me meds.
Kim Petras,
Kim Petras.
And Sam Smith too.
She goes under the radar quite a lot, because she's so convincing and she's so feminine, and she's very young. And I don't think a lot of people don't even realise that Kim Petras is a trans woman. And that goes back to what I was saying before. It's like, you can be, out, well, not even out. You don't have to be a trans person. That's not the identity.
No, it's not exactly.
But you see, I really like. Obviously, I like it when somebody like that, because it was a couple of months ago, that song that they had together, Sam Smith and Kim Petras. It was like the most downloaded track for a month. But when I looked at the lyrics, I was like, this is rubbish. But I like the song itself, but when I actually looked at the lyrics, I'm like, what? Daddy's gone to the body shop?
It's a very queer song.
Yeah, I quite like it. But it's a bit muck. But she's a bit mucky, isn't she?
That's okay.
She writes things like, this is slut pop, get your tits out, shove it right up. As a poet, she's probably not up there, is she, with Keats or Shelley? But she's a positive thing for young people.
I absolutely love that track that she does with Sam Smith. It's amazing.
Are we allowed to say that? I mean, it's in her song, so I don't know if I can.
Yeah, you're just quoting what's in the song. I mean, it's
So for YouTube moderators, I'm actually it's fair use and creative license.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Exactly.
So what? I mean, are there? I was thinking about. Are there any other pop? I mean, I was thinking Boy George, but Boy George is more of a queer. queer
I'm not
icon.
sure about Boy George.
No, Boy George has never been trans. I mean, it's just always it's the clues in the name, really, isn't it? Boy George.
Yeah,
but,
I mean, Boy George is not trans. I think they're just.
What was that? Dana International. Does anybody remember Dana International?
Dana International. No, who's that?
Yeah, she. Oh, didn't she win Eurovision or something for Turkey? I can't remember now.
Don't know. I have to Google
it. I'm trying to think. There must be other trans pop stars apart from Kim Petras.
I'm sure there are. I mean, off the top of my head, I can't think of any names right now. But then there's other kind of walks of life. I mean, when you go to your doctor, have you ever walked into a doctor's office and been met by trans reception staff or a trans doctor, or you go to your dentist? Are you aware of any trans dentists, any trans solicitors, any trans accountants? When you're doing these kind of day-to-day things that we interact with, I mean, do you meet trans people in your daily life like that, in those kind of positions? I don't. I've not met any.
Somebody's mentioned RuPaul's not trans.
RuPaul.
But there are drag queens on Drag Race that are.
There are, yeah.
That's fine.
RuPaul's drag queen.
I suppose that's Turf's worst nightmare, isn't it? A drag queen that is also trans reading stories to children. That would be. That. But I used to be a bit of a drag queen when I was in when I was in my 20s, and I noticed that whenever we did kind of Pride, or there was like a daytime thing, kids it's like, I don't know what it is. They think you're like some kind of Disney princess, and I think that's what kids like.
Well, kids don't judge, do they? They just enjoy the fun. I mean,
no, but they see it for what it is, and it's just
what it is and enjoy it. Yeah.
Yeah, they don't read anything. They don't read these weird sexual dimensions into things Matt Walsh.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, that's a tangent for another time. But
just getting back to this kind of representation thing. I mean, I'm very conscious of it at the moment. I don't know why, but I'm kind of looking for where are the trans people in my day-to-day interactions. Most of the trans people I know are on Twitter. They're in my kind of social world because I've met people within, our kind of community. But when I'm in, when I'm interacting with customers or, things at work, or
I was going to mention
like I was saying, when I'm going, when I'm just doing like daily things, I don't really bump into any trans people. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Well, I was going to say
maybe it's the numbers. I don't know, but like how do maybe trans people have a higher level of unemployment? Maybe they struggle, more with housing and that kind of thing. I mean, I can understand why that would be. Because don't forget, you and I have transitioned whilst we're in work. If you were to try and get another job now, would it be more difficult?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. It depends the kind of company you're applying for, because a lot of big I'm quite lucky. I work for a company that is really bang on with anything to do with.
Well, mine is too.
This, but
I mean, the proof is they've hired other trans people after I.
But we're quite privileged in that a lot of people don't, and a lot of people work for, they might work for a small business, and they, if they're not welcoming, if they don't make you feel relaxed, if they don't make you feel like you can express yourself, it's like I was going to say, like, that I don't have. There's thousands of people that work for the company I work for, and I think I only know 2 other trans people, and there's probably more.
There's probably more, yeah.
So when I have done these kind of visible things where I write a piece for the website and say about me being trans, I'm doing it because if I'd have seen that when I was younger, if I'd have seen somebody doing, because a lot of the times when we see, because we're talking about famous trans people, aren't we? So to me, when I was younger, the only trans people I really saw, like, either really, really famous and it was something unattainable. I never saw a story about just a trans woman that worked for the ambulance service, or a trans woman that worked for, just a company, or it was always something. If you saw a trans person, they were either in trouble for something, or they were some exotic, faraway kind of thing, like a sort of novelty. So when I do speak about it, it's because like I would have liked to have seen that because I would have come out sooner if I'd have worked for a company that was accepting.
Yeah. Are you keeping an eye on the chat?
I'm just saying somebody said
Somebody's
Terry
talking
Wogan.
about Terry Wogan, I'm not sure why.
He's not trans, is he? What's she called?
I need to read. Hang on.
Oh no, I'm not following it very well because Sarah was saying Dana International was a light in the darkness in the 90s.
Terry Wogan was left speechless. Yeah.
Yeah. There was something happened on the Terry Wogan show. Yeah. But anyway, what was I saying? So yeah, I was going to say, I did bump into somebody at work, and it's like you have a sixth sense, I think, as a trans person. You can tell if somebody's trans or not. And I was like, you
can't ask, can you? You can't ask them.
No, that's it. How am I going to broach this? So, I was like, because you do want to connect, don't you? You want to connect.
I mean, you do.
But you want to do it in a respectful way.
Experience.
Because I don't want to go up to somebody and go, oh, you're a tranny as well, aren't you?
I think maybe we need a secret handshake or something, don't we?
Yeah, that's why the Masons have.
That's probably.
So what's going to be the secret?
What's going to be the transgender handshake? I don't know. It's a good idea, that.
Yeah.
We need a sign, don't we?
Yeah, but then again,
maybe a little dance or something, a special dance.
Just because someone is trans doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get on with them.
No, absolutely not.
Because you might get chatting, and like 5 minutes into the conversation, you find out they're into Coldplay. And it's like, where'd you go from there? It's
or they support Manchester City or something like that,
Yeah. Or they put mayonnaise on chips.
Other football clubs are available. Yeah, mayonnaise on chips. Yeah, I've done that. Yeah.
Get out.
Get it? I'm guilty.
So yeah, any more famous trans people or business people?
I'm struggling now.
Business
people. There was 650 people at Trans in the City event last year, and they were all business people. Across all kinds of amazing businesses.
There's one person we haven't mentioned, a very famous barrister, who we both got the book of, Robin Moira.
Moira White, yeah, very famous.
Yeah. So she's known amongst, because she wrote that great book.
Yeah,
it's been very useful.
I would say she's a prominent discrimination barrister in the UK that's kind of specialises in this area.
And it's good to know that, and it's good to know that people are fighting your corner. Because, like, if anything happened to me and say I had to go to court, or I don't know for whatever, like parking fine evasion, I don't know. But
it's more like breach of the peace with your megaphone, I would have thought,
Yeah, but would a judge look at me as a trans woman and go, "Oh God, not another one"?
I hope not. I hope that they're a bit kind of more
troublemaker. No, there would have to be. But so in other areas, like, so we covered what have we covered? Entertainment.
I think we've covered pretty much all the areas there. I'm not sure if it's a problem or how you increase representation, but I would like to see more trans people in prominent positions, and that based on what you'd expect, according to the census figures. It just doesn't add up at the moment. It's like this.
Well, we need to create.
Where are you?
We need to create an atmosphere where people feel comfortable.
People don't feel safe, do they? That's the other thing. Maybe a lot of these people are not out, and we just don't know who they are.
Yeah. Well, why would they put themselves?
I don't need to know who they are, but
yeah, but I think that there's a bit of a climate of, I think we should be celebrating more trans people to help younger trans people because they need role models.
So is it really more about normalisation? Is that what we're talking about here as well?
I don't know. Because, see, in one sense,
if I was to go into my doctor's and there was a trans doctor or there's somebody trans in the office and I knew of them, what would my reaction be? I mean, I shouldn't react at all. I should just say, oh, yeah, that's normal. What's wrong? But I'd be, oh wow, yeah, there's another trans person.
Well, that's the reaction because there's just not as many of them.
Because it's not normalised, even for us. It's not normalised to bump into each other, is it? I'm
in like two minds about it because on one hand, I want to think, oh God, we're so special. With a rare diamond. Do you know what I mean? It's like with a seam of gold in a mountain of shit. But I know I am.
I think you're projecting again.
But that. See, this is it though, because like when you went, like I said, when we do see famous trans people that we love, we want to share that with people. It's like there was a situation where
it's probably a bit embarrassing for the famous trans person too, because they suddenly, like Annie Wallace. We were at an event in Liverpool, and we kind of gravitate towards, and she's probably thinking, who are these people?
Yeah, because we did go. We are quite excited, aren't we?
We were excited to see Annie. I don't think Annie was.
She's probably used to that.
She is. That's what I'm saying. It's probably a bit strange for the famous person because they don't know who you are, but you know who they are.
But you see, the thing is, I'm used to it because everybody's always excited to see me. Yeah. I was just going to say, Rebecca has mentioned somebody I hadn't heard of. Is it my eyesight's a bit fun? Michaela J. Rodriguez. Can you see that? And then she was the first trans actress to win a Golden Globe. And Joss is in the chat. Hello.
Oh yeah. So Michaela, she was in Pose, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pose, the first trans. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah. Hi.
Oh, hi, Joss. Just saying, some trans people go for cis assimilation and would hate to be clocked. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but I mean, like, also, like, if you stand out, like, say, because that could be your publicity in a way. Like, if you're like a big fish in a small pond, so you become the trans person, you become the thing, that's your brand in a way. Sometimes I think that's what happens, and I think it's and then they start to resent it because that's all. I was thinking about Paris Lees, because when Paris Lees first started to get famous and she was a writer, she would constantly write about being trans, and it was all about trans because that was her niche. She knew she could build on that. But then later she was like, no, I don't want to talk about that anymore. Fair enough. She shouldn't have to talk about anything she doesn't want to talk about. But the thing is, she was distancing herself from the thing that she was happy to exploit to get. I think there's an element of that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I just think it's what happens. Because if you're an actress, you have to have, like, if you think about how many actresses there are who are trying to make it in Hollywood, and then you become the trans actress, then that is something that press or publicists might gravitate to.
I mean, it does kind of give that person a little bit of an extra boost, doesn't it? Because there's something different about them.
But there would have to be talent behind it, because if you can't just be the trans
just be based on being trans, no.
Yeah, but it's like, but the media love it because there's this is something that transphobes hate, because the actual media are kind of fascinated by us. And
that documentary, Disclosure, you remember that? You've seen that. That kind of touches on a lot of these issues that we're talking about. I know it's kind of focused on, the world of movies and stuff. But if anybody's, listening, watching, I highly recommend watching that documentary. It was really kind of groundbreaking when it came out. I think it's a couple of years ago now, but really good.
Yeah, I say it's like when I do, when I do make myself visible as trans, obviously, because I don't pass. But what I'm saying is, when I do talk about it a lot, and when I do me spoken word things, a lot of my writing is about it because it's my experience. It's what I know. So, So we were going to talk about our little appearance on the Upload show, weren't we? Oh yeah, we was on BBC Radio Manchester.
So this was nice. David Scott's. Is it every Saturday, that show? I think it is.
Yeah,
and it's always David.
Yeah.
So David Scott, BBC Radio Manchester, does this Upload show where people within Greater Manchester can showcase their kind of, I don't know, like if they're a poet, or if they're a band, or if they're a podcast, or whatever
anything,
they do,
really.
They can go on there and give themselves a little bit of a promotion. And we got invited on and did that last Saturday.
Yeah, we were something a bit different really for them, because normally it'll be some band, some indie wangers.
David tried to get you to do some poetry, but you weren't quite prepared, were you? So anyway.
No, he put me on the spot. He was like, come on, Freda, give us a recital. I didn't have any...
I was a bit nervous, but I really enjoyed doing it. It was, it was nice to do that.
Yeah, they didn't pay us, but
well, you're not going to get paid, are you? It's free promotion. We should be paying them.
I don't know.
Maybe not. It's the BBC. We don't want to pay the BBC, do we?
You're supposed to be my agent, Victoria.
I'm your agent.
I was just somebody just mentioned.
You're not going to make a lot of money if I'm your agent.
In the chat, Rebecca, the two models that stood against Kelly J. Keane in New York. Oh my God, that was so funny. Did you see that?
I did see that. I don't know who they were, but I saw it.
Yeah. Well, when Kelly was in New York, and the counter protest was so strong that she couldn't do their little stand on a box and repeat her usual "men don't have penises" line. So there was these two trans models, and they were going, "Trans women are beautiful," and like shaking the tits like this. Fantastic. I'm not going to do it, honestly.
No, don't, please.
We don't want to get kicked off. Nobody needs to see my tits. Not on YouTube.
Not live on YouTube, they don't, anyway. No.
Yeah, you have to go to Chatterbait for that.
Are you keeping an eye on these chat comments?
Not really. Amara Giesel Jones. I don't think that's the last question.
Giselle.
Model and coach. Or coach. Yeah. Right. Models. Yeah. The trans models. There are quite a few of those.
And
actually.
then Oh my Hall's post there about recently clocked somebody as trans who wasn't trans. I felt awful, but she was like, "What's to apologise about?" Yeah, she's right.
Well,
what is this to apologise about? It's true.
I told you about that, didn't I? I was in a club and I said, "Oh my God, you're so like I was like, you're really convincing." And she goes, "Convincing what?" But she was a cis woman. I might have been because she was tall and she was stood next to trans women.
I mean, to be mistaken as a trans woman is an honour.
Is that bad? Is that really bad though of me to? Because that word convincing, that's a really bad thing. You know what I mean?
I mean, you're not. Yeah, no, you won't.
You're very convincing.
Convincing of what? Convincing of I'm a human being. Oh, congratulations to me.
Oh, you've tricked me.
Oh God! What a horrible thing. Let's talk about. Go on. Sorry.
I'm talking about me again. Shut up.
Yeah.
I have told you this before. Like
Deja vu. Yeah.
A cis lesbian came up to me in a place in Manchester, and she thought I was cis. And I was like, "How do I handle this? You know what I mean? Do I tell her or?" But she was fine because I said, I was timid. I was like, I'm trans. I was like, I was half expecting her to go, "Oh my God,
what's
you're
trans?
forcing me to have sex with you." Yeah.
Talking of trans, what about Tranuary? Let's talk about Tranuary. Saturday, Soup Kitchen, Manchester.
Yeah, some drag performers.
So this is an all-day event on Saturday.
Yeah.
Originated in Liverpool. I think.
Yeah.
So what is it, Freda? You're going to the day event, aren't you? I'm coming in the evening to watch the show, whatever that is.
Well, there's a poetry.
Go on.
Poetry workshops and some art stuff. It's kind of a community thing, that, and I'm doing a bit of spoken word stuff, and it's just anybody can just drop in, and it's like a sort of mental health, confidence building thing, really. And then in the evening, there's the main club night, which are like a very queer friendly.
So is there going to be a few different people doing things during the evening?
Loads of people.
Yeah, right.
One of my favorite drag queens is on Lil.
Okay, cool.
Lil's amazing, and they're all going to do like a performance each, and I don't know how it's going to go.
So this is in a place called, is it called Soup Kitchen, or just, I think it's just called Soup, isn't it? And it's in the
Stevenson Square.
Quarter, yeah.
Yeah, Soup Kitchen on the corner of Stevenson Square.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be good.
Yeah, I wanted to stay over, but
have you seen the prices of hotels at the moment? It's ridiculous.
Well, I was trying to get off with somebody who lives in town, but he's busy. There's like
I was looking at hotel prices. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with hotel prices in Manchester, but it's like 200 plus for a single night. You know, it used to be like 80, 90, 100, maybe 120, but now it's jumped way up. It's like, can't afford that.
Well,
it's like,
the thing with the city centre now, it's so gentrified. Like a lot of the places that used to be clubs and they used to be like just backstreet bars or whatever, they've been bought by these property developers, and everything is either a hotel or apartments. And it's like they get a lot of trouble now because, with complaints about noise.
Yeah, well, if you kind of ruin it when you gentrify it, don't you?
Don't move to a city centre and complain about noise. You know what I mean?
Maybe if you book in advance, it's cheaper. I don't know, but it's a bit disappointing because if you try and get into Manchester, the trains stop at 11, so you can't even get a late train home. Don't know why do the trains not run until like 3 a.m?
Well, waste of time.
Yeah.
Somebody's mentioned somebody called Castle MacArthur. I don't know who that is. Do you know who that is, Vicky?
No, I don't.
Is that a famous actress?
Don't know.
Do we say actress now? Nobody says actress now anymore, do they?
Everybody says actor these days. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know who that is.
So, in terms of like trans visibility,
so my Holes is from Stockport. I'm from Stockport too.
Representation. We've got a long way to go, haven't we? Really,
we have. I mean, it's
because there are more. We know there are more trans people than there are out, and they would love to come out, and they would need that to feel safe.
With this hostile environment in the UK at the moment, I'm not surprised people are not declaring that they're trans. It's not exactly a welcoming environment, is it?
To be honest, I feel like that's a world we're entrenched in because, like, I'm always on Twitter and I'm always and I kind of go in for it. Do you know what I mean? I kind of there's part of me that is a bit masochistic, I think, and I like a good sort of to and fro and having an argument, and maybe that's part of the way I work, but. If you just didn't go on Twitter, I'm not saying, say if you followed different things on Twitter or you just tailored your social media differently, you would probably never see, you'd see things in the press, like in the media when things like this week, there's been a couple of really big stories, and obviously these things come into the media, but I think on the whole, like when I was on the radio last night, I listened to the callers after, and I was really worried about that because I think, it's going to be people that just full of transphobes. But actually, the overwhelming majority of people that called in were very supportive and very, very understanding, and they might be ignorant about, how we actually express ourselves and how we describe ourselves. But I think most of the public are. They're either supportive or they just don't have enough time in their lives to care about it. You know what I mean? They're just too busy getting on with their own problems. And I think people are generally like that. I think if you're somebody that's spending a lot of time hating minorities, then your life is you're probably projecting something out there, about some work you need to do on yourself. And I would say, I think a lot of people that are transphobic are probably people that are gender questioning, because if it's in your mind, it's something that, because you'll sometimes see these status updates where somebody will just say quite blankly, there's only 2 genders. And it's like, well, who are you telling that to? Because there's part of them that is telling that to themselves, and they want affirmation. They want the affirmation maybe that they're right, but if you have to say it, that shows you have the doubt. So
you have to kind of question why people are so insistent on saying things like that. I mean,
and often people have said things to me like, because they think they're attacking me and say, "Oh, you'll never be a woman." I'll say, "Oh, fine." I just say, "Yeah, whatever." You know what I mean? That's the way I deal with that now, because there's no point in starting a conversation with somebody like that. So I say, "Yeah, maybe I won't." Because what does that mean anyway? Like.
Yeah, I mean, why is your opinion important to me anyway? Yeah.
Yeah, but what does it mean to like one of my heroes, one of my role models was when I was a kid, was Calamity Jane. Is
that what you based it all on, Freda?
Yeah, but I just like the fun that she was not quite.
I'm going to start calling you Calamity Freda. I think that kind of suits you pretty.
I don't want that sticking. But what I was saying is, I was attracted to gender non-conforming. It didn't matter to me, and another role model was. I really like glamorous Hollywood women as well, but I saw that as the kind of same energy, even though they're expressing because it's like a sort of performance of what it is to be a woman or what it is to be male.
So Rebecca has commented about who Castle MacArthur was, if you want to have a look.
The female to male model who was Amara Vasquez topless. Ah, right, yeah.
So is that the name of the two activists then? Is that what we're talking about? Then?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So there are quite a few out there. We're probably just scratching the surface, aren't we? That if you was to make a comprehensive list, I might actually do a blog post about famous trans men and women, or then do you non-binary's got to be on that spectrum as well.
Yeah.
So I remember, just thinking about Calamity Jane because I was watching it with my mum, and I said to Mum, this is about lesbians, don't you? And she was like, no, it's not. No, it's not. It's like, yeah, it is. It's about the love. It's like there's a song in it that says, once I found a secret love. It's obvious. So, yeah. Another thing about, when you talk about representation, I think is like, because we're in a multimedia kind of internet age now. Whereas we are learning more about people we probably would never have found out about. So sometimes people are famous because they don't want to be, because they've done something that's propelled them into the media, propelled them into social media. And people are pretty nasty on that, so they will out people and they will.
Yeah, there are certain. You're talking about Twitter and nasty stuff on there. I'm actually considering coming off Twitter completely. I've moved over to the Mastodon thing.
Well, it was announced today.
It's nice and peaceful over there.
It was, there's nobody on it.
I'm on it.
Well, it was announced today. You
need to get an account on there, by the way, because most of the people are on there, so you should get on.
I might do. Yeah, I'm not really. I like Twitter. I'm happy with Twitter. I quite like the chaos of Twitter. That's what I like about it. I like that it's a bit of a bin fire. But I was going to say,
the whole thing is a bin fire.
They announced that Donald Trump is going to be put back on. So, that's going to be fun, isn't it?
He's already back, isn't he? I thought he was back. I thought the announcement today was he's going back on Facebook and Instagram.
Oh, well, whatever. He's going to run, isn't he, again for president? Oh. And, if you think things are bad now with people like...
Well, what about the Florida guy? Ron DeSantis, whatever he's called. I mean, I think he's going to be a challenger to Trump.
Rhonda Sanchez. Who's she? Has he come out? Yeah.
Going to be challenging Trump. That guy, I don't know, in some respects he's worse than Trump. He's just... He's just one of them. Where do you begin with these people? I really don't know.
Well, these are the people that are banning, like, the Don't Say Gay law. And they're having literature taken out of libraries for children that mention any...
It's getting worse and worse.
It's just reactionary bollocks, isn't it? But I'm definitely going to do that Photoshop of Ron DeSantis as Rhonda Sanchez.
Rhonda from Wales.
Yeah. Well, we've had quite a lot of chat, which has been nice.
That's great. It's great to have some chat.
We've been doing these live ones every Thursday at 7:30 for a couple of weeks, and we thought it's not going to go well. We won't get anybody, but we've managed to get them. I mean, it's not massively oversubscribed, is it? But we're getting there.
Don't complain. Don't complain. It's lovely to have people come on and chat with us. Yeah. Thank you for your comments. I think we've managed to read out most of them. They kind of go past so quick, it's hard to keep up sometimes when you're trying to make sure everything's working. And Freda's supposed to be monitoring it, not me.
Oh, they're talking amongst themselves now.
Okay, that's all right then. Yeah.
But we're gonna love you and leave you.
We are going to love you and leave you.
I hope you've enjoyed our top quality opinion having.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Are we going to sing it?
Go on then.
1, 2, 3. Don't forget. You're not doing it. 1, 2, 3. Don't forget to subscribe. We've got to do the vocal harmony.
We're going to need to practice. We're going to have to practice. No, it's not working, Freda.
Don't forget to subscribe.
I'll lip sync. You sing.
No, I'm not doing it again. It's embarrassing. Right.
Yes, we will sign off. Say our goodbyes. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Please like. Please come back again and listen to our nonsense. And our next episode will be on Sunday around 5:30. It depends how long it takes me to upload the thing, but that's like the weekly news review, so that'll be coming out Sunday afternoonish. And I think we've got a special coming up next week, have we, Freda?
Yeah, we're going to speak to Police Officer Paul Bloomer.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting one.
About hate crimes. We can't talk too much about some, because I've been involved in a hate crime incident recently, but I can't speak personally about it. So we're going to talk generally about
police.
Yeah, about reporting online abuse. So,
and I think we can ask Paul about that issue that we spoke around with the Surrey Police Commissioner, which was
Lisa Townsend,
police officers, trans police officers doing strip searches and the kind of like the issues around that. So I'd like to hear Paul's opinion on that one. That would be interesting. So anyway, we will be back soon.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Bye.